Hey, it's Jason here at Fraser Valley Rose Farm. Well, now that you've seen this thing in action, I guess you're wondering, what is up with such a weird sprinkler stand design on my farm? What I'll do, actually I love this thing, and I'm going to show you how to build it. I'm also going to have a discussion about why I think this design is pretty awesome. And so stick around, and I think I'll skip right to the part where I show you how to build one first, and then we'll have a discussion about all of its benefits.
All right, let's dive right in here and start putting this portable sprinkler together. Now I'm going to start going through the parts as I put this together, but don't worry, I will have another section right at the tail end of the video where I show you all of the parts and the counts that you will need. But first thing we're going to put together is one of the sides, and you're going to have to assemble this twice because there are two sides. But to do the first side here, I'm going to start with one of the short sections of PVC, one of the medium sections of PVC, and a 45-degree coupling. Now to do this, any kind of PVC gluing is a two-step process. And I have gone ahead and primed all of the other pieces, but I just want to show you here that you need to prime about 1.5 inches on the end before you apply the cement. You also need to do that to the insides of your fittings. So for this all to stick together, it needs to have both the primer and the cement. This is the cement portion here. Now for this step here, this very first step of putting the sprinkler together, you don't need to worry about how you align these. You just need to grab some cement and put it on one end here and onto the inside of your coupling. That's as easy as that. And just press them together and hold for a count of 5. And now attach the medium piece. Make sure we have good coverage there. Press them together and hold for a count of 5. And if you don't hold them long enough, what can happen is the cement will actually push the piece out a little bit. So once they're held together like that, the next joint that I'm going to do here is I'm going to need one of the long sections of PVC. And before I do this, I'm going to be joining those together with a 90 degree. I'm also going to take 2 more 90 degrees here. Stick one on this end, but I'm not going to glue that. Stick one on this end, and I'm not going to glue that. But this one I will be gluing. I'm just using these as placeholders for now. And on the inside of the coupling as well. And press and hold. And let's glue the other end of that 90. And press and hold. Now I'm going to hold this whole thing down like this so that it's all straight on one plane here. And that makes one side of your portable sprinkler. All right, off camera, I went and assembled the second side here. So now what I have is 2 sides of the portable sprinkler assembled, each one exactly like the other. So next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to assemble the base, or the tail of the sprinkler, and put that together. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it dry. I'm not going to glue anything yet. And this will give you a good idea of what the sprinkler looks like fully assembled. It'll also square everything off so that when I glue it, that it should remain square and flush. So I'm going to turn this one inward and turn this one inward. Next thing I'm going to do is take one more short piece on this and one more short piece on this and a T. So for the T, I'm going to stick that in like this and stick this one in here like this. Okay, so that's the bottom end of the sprinkler, all assembled up. And now for the top end. And coming up this way, the top end, I do exactly the same thing. I turn them inwards. I grab one short section here and put it in up this way. Grab one more short section over here and slip it in this way. And then the final T. Up like this. Okay, so this is all dry fitted together. None of it glued. And when I actually glue it, some of these pieces will actually come in a little bit. So the dimensions of this will actually shrink a little bit. But now this is an idea of what it goes. Now the tricky part here is that when I'm finished with all of this, I don't want it to be skewed over this way, and I don't want it to be skewed over this way. And I want this to be facing directly upwards. So the next thing I have to do to try to keep this square is I'm just going to use a level. Sometimes I use just a vertical surface like a wall to square it up, but here I'm squaring it up with a level on this side and also on this side, and then I can glue. So hopefully I can maintain it as square as I glue it. So to do that, I'm just going to glue it one joint at a time. So I'm going to slip this one out right here and glue that first joint. Coat that really well and slip that down in and hold, and I'm just going to do that while I hold and hold for 5 seconds in the right position, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. I've finished gluing everything else, and the final joint that I have to glue is this top one here. And I'll show you why I waited till the last to do that one here. But if you look down now, you can see that I've actually glued all these joints down here and on the back end here as well. So I've got all of the bottom of it assembled. The next thing I wanted to do is I actually wanted to assemble fully the top head riser portion of this. And the reason I want to do that is because when I actually install this, I'm going to have to crank it until it's precisely vertical. It's going to be easier to do that if I have this piece on the top of it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all of that together. So these two pieces go out to the gap that I have up there. And the next piece that I need to install here is a bushing. And this is a bushing that reduces the pipe size from 1.5 inch here so that it can accommodate now a 3/4 inch piece of pipe. I don't know why doing this reminds me of Mario Brothers somehow. All these cool pipe sizes. Okay, pushing that in and holding it for 5 seconds so it doesn't push out. Got some glue dribbling there. The next piece I'll put on is actually the 3/4 inch pipe. I've already got this primed and the inside of the fitting. You can see I've reused some old pipe here. That's okay. Do that all the time. The next piece here, this is a coupling that's on both sides not threaded, and it's still 3/4 inch to match this pipe size here. Going to glue one end on and hold. And finally, this is the final bushing that reduces it from the 3/4 inch size there that goes into this coupling to the inside here is a 1/2 inch size. That is that 1/2 inch female pipe thread is what the sprinkler head will screw into. Okay, so this is the whole thing here. And when I install this whole thing onto the sprinkler stand anyway, I need to make sure that this portion here is vertical. So I still have that level out, but what I'm going to do next is a little bit tricky because I have to glue both sides of this, fit it in, and then crank it up to level it all at the same time. And we'll see how well I do that. So gluing the insides of the fittings first. And up here, glue the outside of the 1.5 inch pipe. One thing I learned early on doing PVC fitting like this is don't rush. The glue, actually, the cement doesn't dry so quickly. And so when you're going to do something complicated like this, you can actually take your time. All right. Let's pull a little gap in here. Okay. Stick it all together. And now, while it's still wet, I can take this and crank it in the direction it needs to go. And that is perfect. All right, holding this tight together. And that is it glued. So there's one more thing I need to show you about the assembly of the stand portion here. And that's back on the bottom. I just have to make this one last glue joint, I promise. This is the bushing for the bottom end here. And this bushing is threaded on the inside. Still takes it down to 3/4 inch, but it's threaded. And that threaded bushing is going to be the place where I can put in this adapter. It's just a brass adapter. I've already put Teflon tape on that so that it will reduce the chances of leaking on the bottom here. And then this piece here is iron pipe thread on this side, and on the outside here it's hose thread. So when I screw that one on and tighten all that up, now I'm prepared to attach the hose to the bottom end. Okay, well that's it for the assembly portion. The one last bit that I have to assemble is just to throw the sprinkler onto the top of this thing, and then I'm ready to show you why I like this design so much.
Alright, before I install the sprinkler head back into the sprinkler and have a discussion of the sprinkler stand itself, let's talk about the sprinkler head. This here is the Rainbird MaxiBird sprinkler head. Not trying to make a commercial for these guys, but it is the one that I've used the most extensively, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to build a sprinkler stand like this one here, is that this head fits into it. It's threaded at the bottom at a 1/2 inch male iron pipe thread, and this here I've used so much. I've where I work professionally, I grow perennials, and I probably have 300 to 400 of these things running in the greenhouses and out in the field, and it's super durable and super flexible. It has 3 adjustments you can use on it. This here, the blue part you see in the middle there, is the nozzle. That there can flip out and be replaced by a different nozzle that will allow less or more water to go through the sprinkler. The second adjustment is this flip here that goes between these springs, and that there allows you to let it spin 360, or depending on how you set these springs, you can go any amount in between 0 and 360. So it's very adaptable that way. And the third adjustment comes with a little screw that sits right here. And by turning this screw back and forth, you can either get a straight stream of water that goes out quite a distance, or you can break up the stream of water and have it more dispersed. Like I say, I have 300 or 400 of these things running on the nursery, and very, very rarely do I have to replace any because they're not working. Usually, if there is a problem, it's just because algae has gotten into the pipes and it's clogged the sprinkler. And even that, it seems to pound through pretty quickly. So I wanted to use this, but one thing is, it does have a fairly large spray, a large radius. Goes up to about, practically speaking, I can get it to go up to about 25 feet, which means that when it sprays water, it kicks back quite a ways. So in practice, when you're using it, and here's our sprinkler, that when you're using it, and normally if you have it, I'm just going to screw it in here quickly for display purposes. Normally when you have it installed at the nursery, it will be on a long riser, and the riser is this same 3/4 inch pipe, but it runs straight to the ground, and it's installed into a supply pipe that's a large diameter, like the 1.5 inch you see there, but buried in the ground by about 6 to 12 inches, usually more like 12 inches, because what will happen is, as this thing starts to kick back a little bit, it sort of sways the riser back by 6 inches or flexes it back. And that's okay, but the problem is that if it's too loose, if it doesn't have a lot of support, it can change the pattern of how this thing works, and even to the point of making it fall over if it's not well supported on the bottom. So that's the purpose of this sprinkler. Let me set up on a tripod here and I'll show you the rest. So the reason I want to install this sprinkler at some height is because sometimes I have plants that are a little bit taller. So if I have roses that have grown to 3 or 4 feet tall, I definitely don't want to have this down at the ground level. So by installing at this height, we have that problem with sway, but this sprinkler stand solves that by having such a wide base. And what happens is, when you turn on the water on this thing, it fills up the stand first, making this thing a lot heavier and a lot more stable for when it's running the sprinkler. So this thing no longer sways back and forth. However, once you turn off the water and unhook it, all that water drains out, leaving this light. And I can walk around with this all day, probably in total less than 10 pounds of weight on here, and super easy to get around and place. So that's why this is such an adaptable and easy to use stand for this sprinkler head. Okay, really quickly here, I wanted to go through all of the parts that you'll need for this project, just in case you decide to put it together. This first piece here, that's for holding up the sprinkler head. And that is 3/4 inch PVC. I've cut it to an 8-inch section. And at 8 inches, that gives me a total height at the sprinkler head of 36 inches, or 3 feet. So if you wanted to make yours a little bit higher or a little bit lower, this is the piece that you could easily adjust to adjust the height of your sprinkler. The next pieces you need, all of these pieces of pipe are 1.5 inch PVC. I've done it in 2 inch before, but 1.5 inch is what I had on hand, so that's what I made it with. For this project, you'll need 6 of these short pieces, and the short pieces are 10 inches long. You're going to need 2 of the medium-sized pieces of pipe, and I've cut each of those to 15 inches long. And you'll need 2 of the longest pieces of PVC pipe, and those ones are 23 inches long. Okay, moving on to fittings. You're going to need 6 of the 1.5 inch 90-degree elbows. You can see that those are slipped, they're not threaded. 2 of the 45-degree elbows, also 1.5 inch, and also slip, not threaded. Okay, moving on to the section that makes the head of the sprinkler. You need a 1.5 inch T, again all slip, not threaded, and a bushing. Now this bushing reduces the diameter from the 1.5 inch, goes there, down to 3/4 inch for the head pipe to fit into. Also, to fit in the sprinkler head, for the top end of that pipe, 3/4 inch slip coupling, and another bushing. This one is threaded on the inside. So that one there is what you actually screw the sprinkler head into. For the bottom end of this portable sprinkler assembly, you need another 1.5 inch T and another bushing. This bushing on the inside here is threaded. And to fit the hose in, just need a couple of adapter pieces. So this one here is a 3/4 inch threaded male iron pipe thread on both sides. And that goes into there. And then for the other end is male iron pipe thread female going to female hose thread, which goes there. And you can see that on this adapter piece here that I've already put on the Teflon. For assembling it, you'll also need, if you don't have it on hand already, PVC primer and PVC cement. Okay, that should take care of everything you need for the project. And hey, if you do go ahead and put this together, I would sure like to hear from you in the comments to say how it worked out for you. Thank you so much for watching today. And if you have any comments, please leave them below.